But the most important thing that I want folks to take away from this conversation, and any conversation that you have with people at the dinner table, in the community, in the barbershops, is the fact that a woman should have her own right to choose what's best for her and her body, and the government should not have any type of interference, whether that is in the confines of your home, your bedroom, within your preference of religious beliefs.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So in this video, I wanted to bring light to what is currently going on in Texas. As you know, if you don't already know, Texas has an abortion ban. It is illegal for anyone to have an abortion in Texas. And currently right now, doctors are afraid to provide basic care to women who actually needs it. So they're currently leaving the state in huge numbers, OBGYNs, nurses. And so I wanted to share light on what's going on. There's a lot of stories of women who actually have lost their lives and their partners coming out and sharing their stories on how exactly that happened, how it could have been prevented. And I want to share stories of women who also almost died. So I have a lot of stitches. Please brace yourselves, and trigger warning as well. I want to share light on what's going on currently to women, because it just needs, not that a lot of people care. I know a lot of people do not care, because if they cared, these laws would not have been passed in the first place. So I want to do my part. I advocate for women. I care about women's rights. That's one of the main drive behind me creating my channel, wanting to remind women that, they are strong, they are beautiful, and, remember that they have options. But right in front of my eyes, our rights are being, taken away little by little. I want to definitely share light, and I will give my full on opinion at the end of the video. Let's go ahead and get started on the stitches.
The Texas Maternal Mortality Committee will skip over the last 2 years post-Roe when they start reviewing cases again in December this year. Despite the fact that we have already received news from ProPublica that there have been at least 3 preventable deaths as a result of what's happened to Roe, as a direct result of Trump's first presidency, when he put in ultra-conservative right-wing justices who, in their Senate hearings, outright said that Roe was a precedent that would be left alone. They lied, and then they overturned Roe. This comes right after Georgia fired their entire maternal mortality review committee because they provided information about preventable deaths that occurred as a result of these restrictive abortion laws. Texas and Georgia are trying to cover up what's happening in their states. They don't want it getting out that their states are directly causing the deaths of women because of their laws, because of Roe v. Wade being overturned. So now it has to be left up to families and whistleblowers for us to hear about these cases that are so important to be heard. We have to know their names, we have to know their stories, and we have to scream them from the rooftops. The attack on women by the right, by the misinformed, by the anti-choicers, by the forced birthers has to stop. And they can't cover up what they have done. They can't just wash it away. That's not going to happen. Despite the fact that they're going to try their hardest to cover this shit up in Texas and Georgia, it's going to come out. And I so hope that these families sue the shit out of your states, Texas and Georgia. And when they do, I so hope they come up in front of a judge that is not compromised. Hopefully, they will be placed in front of a judge, one of the 200-something judges that Biden has just confirmed. Because I swear to you, there will be no peace until there is justice.
ProPublica is staying on the necks of these forced birther states. I do wonder how many women need to die in these supposed pro-life states in order for them to make any changes. I doubt anything will come of this because this happens to be a Black woman, but still, let's get into this story. They title it, "A Third Woman Died Under Texas Abortion Ban. Texas Are Avoiding DNCs and Reaching for Riskier Miscarriage Treatments." 35-year-old Porsha Ngumezi's case raises questions about how abortion bans are pressuring doctors to avoid standard care, even in straightforward miscarriages. Wrapping his wife in a blanket as she mourned the loss of her pregnancy at 11 weeks, Hope Ngumezi wondered why no obstetrician was coming to see her. So this woman was married. She was married, y'all. She wasn't one of those women over there that's living all loose and lascivious. Over the course of 6 hours on June 11, 2023, Porsha Ngumezi had bled so much in the emergency department at Houston Methodist Sugarland that she needed 2 transfusions. She was anxious to get home to her 2 young sons, but according to a nurse's notes, she was still passing large clots the size of grapefruit. Hope dialed his mother, a former physician who was unequivocal. "You need a D&C," she told them, referring to dilation and curettage, a common procedure for first trimester miscarriages and abortion. If a doctor could remove the remaining tissue from her uterus, the bleeding would end. But when Dr. Andrew Ryan Davis, the obstetrician on duty, finally arrived, he said it was the hospital's routine to give a drug called misoprostol to help the body pass the tissue, Hope recalled. Hope trusted the doctors. Porsha took the pills according to records, and the bleeding continued. 3 hours later, her heart stopped. The 35-year-old's death was preventable, according to more than a dozen doctors who reviewed a detailed summary of her case for ProPublica. Some say it raises serious questions about how abortion bans are pressuring doctors to diverge from the standard of care and reach for less effective options that could expose their patients to more risk. Doctors and patients described similar decisions they've witnessed across the state. It was clear Porsha needed an emergency D&C, the medical expert said. She was hemorrhaging, and the doctor knew she had a blood clotting disorder, which put her at a greater danger of excessive and prolonged bleeding. Misoprostol at 11 weeks is not going to work fast enough, said Dr. Amber Truhard, an OBGYN at the University of New Mexico Center for Reproductive Health. The patient will continue to bleed and have a higher risk of going into hemorrhagic shock. The medical examiner found the cause of death to be hemorrhage. D&C, a staple of maternal health care, can be life-saving. Doctors insert a straw-like tube into the uterus and gently suction out any remaining pregnancy tissue. Once the uterus is emptied, it can close, usually stopping the bleeding. But because D&Cs are also used to end pregnancies, the procedure has become tangled up in state legislation that restricts abortions. In Texas, any doctor who violates the strict law risks up to 99 years in prison. Porsha's is the 5th case ProPublica has reported in which women died after they did not receive a D&C or its second trimester equivalent, a dilation and evacuation. 3 of those deaths were in Texas. Texas doctors told ProPublica the law has changed the way their colleagues see the procedure. Some no longer consider it a first-line treatment, fearing legal repercussions or dissuaded by the extra legwork required to document the miscarriage and get the hospital approval to carry out a D&C. This has occurred, ProPublica found, even in cases like Porsha's, where there isn't a fetal heartbeat or the circumstances should follow under an exception in the law. Some doctors are transferring those patients to other hospitals, which delays their care, or they're defaulting to treatments that aren't the medical standard. Misoprostol, the medicine given to Porsha, is an effective method to complete low-risk miscarriages, but is not recommended when a patient is unstable. The drug is also part of a 2-pill regimen for abortions, yet administering it may draw less scrutiny than a D&C because it requires a smaller medical team and because the drug is commonly used to induce labor and treat postpartum hemorrhage. Since 2022, some Texas women who were bleeding heavily while miscarrying have gone public about only receiving medication when they asked for D&Cs. One later passed out in a pool of her own blood. Stigma and fear are there for D&Cs in a way that they are not for misoprostol, said Dr. Allison Golden, an OBGYN in Houston. Doctors assume that a D&C is not standard in Texas anymore, even in cases where it should be recommended. People are afraid. They see D&C as abortion, and abortion is illegal. And here is a man visiting his wife, who was just 35. They have 2 young sons, and she should still be here and be alive. Doctors and nurses involved in Porsha's care did not respond to multiple requests for comment because, of course, they didn't. Several physicians who reviewed the summary of her case pointed out that Davis's postmortem notes did not reflect nurses' documented concerns about Porsha's heavy bleeding. After Porsha died, Davis wrote instead that the nurses and other providers described the bleeding as minimal, though no nurses wrote this in their records. ProPublica tried to ask Davis about this discrepancy. He did not respond to emails, texts, or calls because, of course, he didn't. Houston Methodist officials declined to answer a detailed list of questions about Porsha's treatment. They did not comment when asked whether Davis's approach was the hospital's routine. A spokesperson said that each patient's care is unique to that individual. All Houston Methodist hospitals follow all state laws, the spokesperson added, including the abortion law in place in Texas, where they can actually allow women to die. Ken Paxton went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said that Texas doctors can let Texas women die. Here is Hope with his 2 sons. Hope marveled at the energy Porsha had for their 2 sons, ages 5 and 3. Whenever she wasn't working, she was chasing them through the house or dancing with them in the living room. As a finance manager at a charter school system, she was in charge of the household budget. As an engineer for an airline, Hope took them on flights around the world to Chile, Bali, Guam, Singapore, Argentina. The 2 had met at Lamar University in Beaumont, Texas. When Porsha and I began dating, Hope said, I already knew I was going to love her. She was magnetic and driven, going to earn an MBA, but she was also gentle with him, always protecting his feelings. Both were raised in big families, and they wanted to build one of their own. And I want to stop here and say that these abortion bans are harming women who actually want to have children. They're not actually harming these child-free women who will just go out and get sterilized. They're harming women that are trying to expand their families. When he learned Porsha was pregnant, again in the spring of 2023, Hope wished for a girl. Porsha found a new OBGYN who said she could see her after 11 weeks. 10 weeks in, though, Porsha noticed she was spotting. Over the phone, the obstetrician told her to go to the emergency room if it got worse. To celebrate the end of the school year, Porsha and Hope took their boys to a water park in Austin. As they headed back on June 11th, Porsha told Hope that that the bleeding was heavier. They decided Hope would stay with the boys at home until a relative could take over. Porsha would drive to the emergency room at Houston Methodist Sugarland, one of the 7 community hospitals that are a part of the Houston Methodist system. At 6:30, 3 hours after Porsha arrived, she saw huge clots in the toilet, significant bleeding, the emergency physician wrote. I'm starting to feel a lot of pain, Porsha texted Hope. Around 7:30, she wrote, she said I might need surgery if it doesn't stop bleeding, referring to a nurse. At 7:50 p.m., after a nurse changed her second diaper in an hour, come now. Still, the doctor didn't mention a D&C at this point, records show. Medical experts told ProPublica that this wait-and-see approach has become more common under abortion bans. Unless there is overt information indicating that the patient is at significant risk, hospitals' administrators have told physicians to simply monitor them, said Dr. Robert Carpenter, a maternal fetal medicine specialist who works in several hospital systems in Houston. Methodist declined to share its miscarriage protocols with ProPublica or explain how it is guiding doctors under the abortion ban. This is a long article. There will be
A woman has died because of Trump's abortion ban, bringing the total to 3 women who have died in Texas that we know of. Her name was Porsha Ngumezi, and she was an incredibly intelligent and hardworking person who had an MBA and worked as a finance manager for a charter school. She leaves behind her husband Hope and her 2 young sons who were aged 3 and 5 at the time of her passing. When Porsha was 11 weeks pregnant with a wanted pregnancy, she started to suffer from a miscarriage. She went to the hospital where she bled for over 10 hours before succumbing to hemorrhaging and blood loss. She needed a simple D&C, which is just removing leftover fetal tissue from the uterus, which allows it to clamp and stop the bleeding. But doctors were too scared to give her one for fear of prosecution under Texas's very vague abortion laws. Multiple doctors who've reviewed Porsha's case agree that her death was preventable and she would still be here if she got a D&C. Women in this country are dying because they cannot access life-saving reproductive health care due to barbaric abortion bans. This is what happens when men who don't have medical degrees and have no idea what a uterus is or does makes laws regulating.
How do you feel about people making this an issue that's more connected to abortion rights and restrictions and how they are affecting women across this country?
I don't understand how such a law could have been made. They say that the United States of America is the land of the free. So why aren't women free to make their own decisions about their health? My sister died as a result, and I just don't understand it.
Because of this Texas law, her pregnancy became a medical nightmare. Woman says she went into sepsis before she was able to get life-saving care in Texas. Or what about the story of Andrea, who almost lost her life due to these bans, all in Texas? And before I give any more crazy examples of what's going on in Texas, keep in mind that these are all things that Donald Trump has been proud about and bragged about. Leave it up to the states. We got to leave it up to the states. Do you know who always had to bear the brunt of leaving it up to the states? Black people. Harris County has the highest black maternal death rate in the U.S. for years. That's something that frequently comes across my mind when I'm putting in the context how there are women that's being forced to birth and there are women that's dying disproportionately, and we ain't doing nothing about that.
First of all, I'm the one that got rid of Roe v. Wade.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion?
There has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah, there has to be some form.
Women will be happy, healthy, confident, and free. You will no longer be thinking about abortion. So all they talk about abortion. You will no longer be abandoned, lonely, or scared. You will no longer have anxiety. You will be protected, and I will be your protector.
Which takes me back to the story of Andrea, man. Think about it. This woman had prayed to have a child. I'm talking about was looking forward to creating that family, right? She miscarried, got a life-threatening infection, and then literally had to have her life be at risk before she was able to get any care. Andrea is black, and black women are more likely to suffer preterm labor and other pregnancy complications that are far more likely to lead to their child having this happen to them. It's on the line right there. Where maternal mortality rates are increasing here in our state of Texas.
This is Ryan Hamilton. He and his wife live in North Texas, and when his wife was about 13 weeks pregnant, they found out that the fetus didn't have a heartbeat. She had a miscarriage, and he told me they were heartbroken. The doctor that they went to see gave them a medication to induce labor, misoprostol, but it didn't work. So they went back the next day, but this time the doctor didn't want to give them another dose, saying because of the current stance in Texas. Let me explain. Texas law says abortions cannot be performed once there is a fetal heartbeat, except for cases of medical emergency. The procedure is allowed if there is no fetal heartbeat, like in the Hamilton's case. The family also asked about a D&C, dilation and curettage, which is a procedure to remove fetal tissue, but the doctor there said it wasn't a big enough emergency. So they went to another hospital. They drove about an hour away, and once they established that the fetus did not have a heartbeat, the doctors there gave them a higher dosage of the medication. She went home, took it, and Ryan found her the next day, passed out, bleeding, unconscious on the bathroom floor. He rushed her to the hospital, and that saved her life. We looked at her medical records and asked what went wrong. Ryan thinks doctors are unsure of the law. They're scared about making a mistake, which could cost them their medical license or even their medical practice. And he says that if doctors aren't putting patients first, this could continue to happen in states that have heartbeat laws.
Well, it started on Thursday, and now it's Saturday. My wife has been bleeding for 3 days with our baby still inside of her. I would go in and check on her, and I went in and checked on her one of the final times that I did. She asked me to bring her a heating blanket and a pillow. So I did. I wrapped her in a heating blanket in the bathroom floor and propped her head on a pillow. And she was cold. And it's the first time I thought, is she going to die? I had a missed call when I was checking on Della in the other room, and it was my wife. And I ran back into the bathroom, and she had fallen off of the toilet. She was unconscious, and there was a huge pool of blood. And I will never forget lifting her cold, limp body off of that bathroom floor. I carried her, still unconscious, to the truck, got my daughter in the car seat, took her to our third hospital, where they finally did not hesitate to help her because she was close enough to dead for them to legally save her.
Texas won't be reviewing maternal deaths in the first 2 years after its near total abortion ban went into effect, likely to cover up the fact that women are dying because of it. The Texas Maternal Mortality and Morbidity Review Committee has said its decision to ignore the first 2 years and the backlog of cases it has to review is in an effort to be more contemporary, whatever that means. As a member of the committee points out, skipping over these years does an incredible injustice to women who have died because of Texas's ban. To be fair, the committee has skipped years in the past, but I think we can all agree this is at least concerning. Also concerning that a very well-known anti-abortion advocate was appointed to the Maternal Mortality Committee by Governor Greg Abbott's administration, the same administration that banned abortion in the state in the first place. Between 2019 to 2022, the first year after the abortion ban, maternal death rates skyrocketed in Texas by 56%. The committee's job is to look into why that is, including if the ban on abortion had any contributing factors. We already know 3 names: Porsha Ngumezi, Nevaeh Crane, and Jolisi Barnica. So what do? If you live in Texas especially, call your representatives and demand that they let the committee do its job. Everyone can put the pressure on Abbott and the Texas Department of Health that we see what they're doing and we're not going to let this happen. Get involved with local abortion access groups. We can't let those women's deaths be in vain.
Thank you so much for making it this far into the video. Now, I was having a conversation with a man, and he stated that if a woman wants to get an abortion, she can just travel and go get it somewhere else. And I started the argument of, well, why do we have to travel outside of the United States or outside of whatever country the person is at to get the abortion when I am paying for my insurance, I'm paying for taxes, I'm working hard, I'm spending in this country's economy. Why do I have to go somewhere else to go get it? I'm a citizen here. It's all about morals when it comes to a woman having an abortion, but it's not about morals when a man is cheating on his wife and breaking up his family, right? So I want to encourage you to make the decision now. It's so important now. Do you want to be child free? And if you don't want to be child free, you want to have children, you need to find the best place for you to be, because I don't think it's going to get any better. It's just going to keep getting worse. These politicians are constantly lying to us. And so even though they will say they're not going to, overturn this, or they're not going to ban that, it might still be in their plan and their goals to do so, and they just lied to our face. So I caution women to move carefully. In these next few years, I am going to look into any types of protests, any types of communities that we can get into if you want to be part of, podcasts, anything like that, that we can start to get the word around and to keep fighting to get an abortion, for you to move out of state or go to a different country. Like, it makes absolutely no sense. Where you are at, women deserve to be safe wherever they are. So where you're at, you deserve to feel safe. You deserve to be safe. You deserve to be protected. You deserve to have the proper care. It doesn't matter where you're at. That's ridiculous. Currently, Russia has banned any type of child-free content. So it's not just America. It's not just Russia. we need to come together and protect each other. We need to keep fighting. I do thank you guys for making it this far into the video. Please like, share, comment. Let's continue this conversation down in the comments. Subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video.